He would have these people that read Dione XS and said, "Wow, this is great. You know what we need to do is set up a foundation for you here." And then Hubbard would run off with the money and go to another city. So he went to Phoenix at one point and set up shop there.
What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show. Was the girl he brought back Mary Sue?
No,
it was different.
Mary Sue was the third wife. This was the second wife.
Okay.
Polly, I think, was his first wife, and then this gal, and I can't think of her name right now. This gal was the second, and then Mary Sue was the third. And there's this great interview done in 1964, I think, called "The Shrinking World of Elon Hubard." And I put this online decades ago, and I heard from the guy who actually made this episode of a documentary series for British TV. And he contacted me and explained how he just went up to Hubbard's ship, which was docked in a port there. He just went up there in the middle of the night and said, "Hi, I'm interested in doing an interview." And he had his equipment there. And Hubbard, for some reason, said, "Yes, that would be a wonderful thing to do. Let's do that right now."
It's a pretty good Hubbard.
Oh, yeah. So they sat down, and this guy's grilling Hubbard. One of my favorite moments is when he talks about Hubbard's marriages, and he asked Hubbard, "What about your second wife?" And he goes, "I never had a second wife." Really?
Total lie.
Well, I mean, if you had only two wives, your second wife would have been Mary Sue, the person you were talking about. But clearly, he's going, "Oh, I never had a second wife." Okay, he just didn't want to mention this gal who, well, it was a massive story in itself. Look this up. Go and look up Elron Hubbard's life, because it's amazing. He tried to have her committed to an insane asylum.
He's also a wife beater and stuff too, right?
Yeah, that was his first wife. And this is about as flawed a human being as you could ever encounter. And he's got the secret to how you can be a perfect human being. It never worked on him. But all of these courses are to help you become not just Homo sapiens. He wants you to become Homo novus, new man, able to control matter, energy, space, and time through Hubbard's Scientology techniques. And this guy his life was in a complete mess, and he found himself hiding out in the desert for the last 10 years of his life or so. When his wife, Mary Sue, went to prison for all these covert activities that they were doing against the U.S. government and against Clearwater. We can go into that.
We will.
I'm bouncing all over the place.
This is fine. You're just giving the overview. This is fine.
Yeah.
We'll come back.
So, this is the guy who let his wife take the fall for him, and he hid out in the desert because he didn't want to go to prison himself.
He also he sailed around the world to run from the U.S. government, basically, right?
Yeah. That was, starting in the early 60s, he got in trouble here in the U.S. The FDA raided their headquarters and seized all of their e-meters and said, "You're practicing medicine without a license." And so he got in trouble with that. And they forced him to put a disclaimer on every e-meter that's still on there. If you look at the back of the e-meter, it says, "This is a religious artifact." And, it's insane. But they still will say, "Yeah, we can cure ailments." They just try to pretend to the authorities that, "Oh, no, we don't do that." Right. But you talk to any Scientologist, and they'll tell you, oh, yeah, it cured my mom's arthritis. It cured this, it cured that.
Science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Hubbard said in Dianetics that you can cure the common cold, you can improve your eyesight, you can do, everything can be cured with.
When did he write Dianetics? That was a book that will explain it, but it later became the basis for what he then transformed into Scientology itself.
Yeah, that was 1950 when it came out as a book. It was first an article in one of those pulp magazines, one of the science fiction magazines. And then the book came out and boom, it was a huge success. It was like the hula hoop there for a brief period. And this was because it was psychotherapy for the common man. At that point in the late 40s, there was massive interest after World War II in psychiatry. But it was something that most people didn't have access to or couldn't afford. If you look at the movies at that point, Hitchcock made a film called Spellbound, which was all about a psychiatrist. And there's a whole lot of movies that deal with this at the time. So it was something that the public was fascinated by. So Dianetics, Hubbard says, you can sit down with a friend and this book, and you can audit each other. Auditing is their form of therapy.
Yep.
So you can, essentially get your therapy session for the price of a paperback. And that was a huge bestseller. And then he started doing lectures. And for a couple of years, he was raking in some dough for the first time in his life. And it was sweet. Except he always got in trouble with his investors. And he would,
who were his investors?
He would have these people that read Dianetics and said, wow, this is great. You know what we need to do is set up a foundation for you here. And then Hubbard would run off with the money and go to another city. So he went to Phoenix at one point and set up shop there. And he lost the copyright to Dianetics in like 1952, I think. It went over to one of the guys who put the money into it. So Hubbard then had to sit down and create something else. And that's when he created Scientology, which was, I think, 1953 when that was established officially. And there's a wire, a telegram that he sent to one of his people saying, how's everything coming on the religion angle?
On the angle.
Yeah, if we can get this approved, I know I can make it stick. I mean, it's right there in writing. This is religion angle, but he got it and he made it stick.
It seems like the guy, I mean, obviously he was narcissistic out of his mind. Obviously and I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm just giving some basic ones here. Obviously he was bipolar. Did have a brain up there. And what it seems to me is that, sort of like you said a few minutes ago, he was maybe actually somewhat consciously aware of all his own internal struggles, that he felt like, almost like we may feel now when we go on to WebMD and hope they're going to tell us something that's going to cure something that's wrong with us at the time, just to get that confidence boost of like, oh yeah, I'll just drink more orange juice and this flu is going to fucking go away. It feels like he did that, but wrote a book about it. And just, I mean, from my perspective, and I haven't read Dianetics, but from the things I've heard about on podcasts and reading articles about it and documentaries, like, it's all made up. It's not, none of it's really based in scientific fact.
He cobbled together a lot of things from, even back in the 1920s, there was some article about Dianetics, I think it was, or Scientology or Dianetics. The name was there prior. It was not exactly what Hubbard developed it into, but clearly it's a lot of stuff he's just pulling out of his ass.
Yes.
And not everything is bad. There are certainly some things that if you get into Scientology, you may be able to learn how to communicate better, for instance. the way Scientologists want you to communicate. Not necessarily the best way to communicate, but there are things you can pick up that in the lower levels are, they're not harmful, and you may learn something from them. But the problem is Hubbard had to keep writing new material because he would promise that this is going to cure this problem. And people would take that course that he created and go, well, I'm not sure that it really did. And he said, but that's in the next course. So he'd sit down and write another course.
$1,000.
Yeah. So, anytime he needed to, he could sit down and say, well, I just came up with this new revelation, and here, you're going to have to buy this. And it worked. I mean, it made him a ton of money.
Do you think he actually believed it? Like he started making money and actually when he sat in bed at night didn't say, I'm scamming all these sons of bitches. He actually thought it was real.
It's hard to say. It seems like he has to know that it was a scam. And his son, Elon Hubard Jr., said that he and Dad would sit around with a case of beer at night and laugh at how they're, put one over on all these suckers. But then you get to the end of his life, and he's hiding in the desert, and he's sitting there with an e-meter, holding the cans and doing auditing on himself. So you think, well, you must believe it if you're sitting there trying to still create new courses to take and actually thinking that you're talking to your body Thetan. So, he may have just gone nuts by that point and decided, well, yeah, I guess, I think I'm really right. I think we are covered with body Thetans. I think, this was a piece of bullshit when I created it, but now I think there's something to it. Yeah.
I mean, you tell yourself something over and over again. Sometimes, psychologically is proven it becomes true to you.
And when you got followers who are telling you, yes, this works, you go, well, yeah, maybe I am onto something. But, I still think he's a con man through and through.
Oh, for sure. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.